Morning, Gamecock fans. Today is Wednesday, August 6th, the year of our Lord 2025. This is Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Thanks for joining me this morning. Busy day here on the Chief Sports Network. TheBigSpur.com is always busy. To just mention all of the media affiliations we have here, Tailgate Talks is back. Pat DeMarco, Stephen Garcia. They had Marcus Lattimore in. I can't wait to listen to that. The podcast version drops this morning on Chief Sports app. The full video version, you can go to their YouTube channel. It's youtube.com at Tailgate Talks 547. Please go like that YouTube channel for them. They got all their episodes up there. It's a good look. You can also watch it on Gamecocks Plus. Good to have Pat and Steven back for a second season. And they'll be on the morning show talking ball all year with us. So that'll be, or with Jamie, and that'll be great. Tonight, the late night Gamecock show, because it's Wednesday. And also it's Wednesday, and that means another JC and Morgan. Andy Staples from On 3 joining Mike and I. Show will start around 9:30 Eastern time, streaming live, podcast version up later. You can catch it archived on this YouTube channel, also on the YouTube channel College Football Forever Chief, at College Football Forever Chief. Please go like that one too if you like college football. So there's that for today. Busy day for yours truly, busy day for Chief and everybody involved. So hopefully it all goes well. It's exciting that the season's getting here quickly. Also, sports talk, I forgot, tonight, leading into the late night Gamecock show. Almost got a full day here on preseason camp continues at South Carolina. It's player media availability. Pads are on now, so this is when it gets real. I think the first scrimmage is this weekend. So that's kind of when things start to separate. A lot of competition out there so far. You know, you sort of look at it and it's I don't know how to describe it. I think just like with everything else in the sport these days, the transfer portal has sucked the oxygen out of the room. But you know, the more I look into it, I mean, I feel pretty good about the talent level on this team. You know, there's a lot of guys. You know, we went through the 2024 class yesterday on the episode. A lot of guys going into their second year in the program that are expected to make a big jump. A lot of guys in their later years in the program are expected to make a big jump. But the difference between this team and maybe even, you know, the other teams that have come through here, you know, Carolina has had their share of talented players. There's no doubt. But they've never really have they had enough. Probably not. The record will show you that. You don't just win on talent. I mean, talent alone, raw talent, if you will, would mean there was no way Florida State would go 2-10 last year. I need to quit bringing that up because it's such an anomaly what happened to them. But we've seen Southern Cal go 7-5, haven't we, in the Big Ten and the Pac-12? You know, you've seen some teams that recruit very well every year and haven't had good seasons. You know, and so that's not all of it. But maybe the difference in this year and some other years is that although Carolina lost good football players, that you have guys replacing the good football players that are like extremely talented. It's not a situation where, you know, well, this guy's a good football player. He's just limited in this way, but he can go be good enough. Maybe at certain positions, that's how it shakes out. But, you know, you have to be encouraged by the fact that if, you know, a large number of these guys, and it will take a large number because it's the SEC and everybody else has great players too. You have to play well, obviously, but if a large number of these guys, you know, take that step and, you know, it could be a really good year for South Carolina. And we've gone through some of the guys that they could be talking about at the end of the year as far as all SEC and all that stuff goes. So that's encouraging. It's you know, we've broken down the roster for a year now, you know, or sorry, the better part of the calendar year, half a year. But once you start kind of digging in, it's one of those things where, well, that guy was a top 100 recruit. That guy was a top 100 recruit. This guy's like a freakazoid athlete, and you go and you kind of go on down the list, and they've Shane Beamer and his staff have a lot to work with. It's not like the cupboard is bare. And some folks are just going to look at it and go, "Oh, Dylan Stewart, Lenore Sellers," and they lost a bunch of other guys, so they're back to 5-7, 6-6. You can't because you can't just win with two great players. Now, if you have a quarterback, now wait a minute. Let me back up because I forgot about 2010 Auburn. Now, 2010 Auburn had a lot of good players. Michael Dyer at running back. Their receivers were capable. They weren't NFL guys, but they were good college football players, and they had a really good offensive line too. But you basically had, Cam Newton on one side and Nick Fairley, the D tackle, a holy terror on another. And I'll tell you this about Nick Fairley too. He was a one-hit wonder as well. He's also a junior college transfer like Cam Newton. We had him evaluated at a Mobile, and this was kind of during the time Alabama was getting everybody in the state. And so out of Mobile in high school, he had to go JUCO, but Auburn got him, and Auburn got him back. And he's an offensive lineman. Shows how much with this guy and Jordan Davis from Georgia, woefully unimpressive offensive line prospects that yours truly was wrong about, but everybody else was too. Four-star offensive line with upside, whatever. And then Fairley became, he may have been the defensive player of the year in the SEC or close. Definitely a stud that wreaked havoc that couldn't be blocked. So there's a development guy. He had to develop. Auburn, got him going or whatever. But, so maybe that's a case of a team that, just a lot of good players around two superstars at the college level. But so I didn't want to say you can't just win with two players because obviously you can, especially if one's a quarterback. So, but that's rare. Most of the teams that win and compete for the SEC are somewhat complete. Although last year there was some schedule functioning, but wow, we've talked that to death. So back, South Carolina's personnel, though, I think, when people say like Brent Pry from Virginia Tech said South Carolina's recruited well, they have. I mean, Brent, he may not have gotten into. I mean, coaches watch film all summer. He may not have dug it, and they may just be looking at the paper. Oh, these guys are 4 stars, or I remember recruiting Fred Johnson as well, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of guys. I mean, there's not as many positions you look at and go, well, none of these guys really have a chance to be anything special. Let's just hope and pray they're pretty good. Maybe a position or two will end up that way. And yeah, so watching the player availability yesterday after practice, and Boaz Stanley, man, I mean, that dude's neck is, I mean, that guy looks like John Cena or something. So I guess there's a reason everybody was high on him. Boaz has shown up on some lists of people that Carolina got out of the portal that are going to be really good. Obviously, Beamer thought enough of him to say starting center. I've heard he's aggressive and nasty on the field. He's kind of one of those offensive linemen that scare you because he, like I said, he looks like John Cena or, that dude on the show Reacher from Prime. That's a guilty pleasure of mine. I know it's not award winning, but I like watching the show. And, it very, looks like a cerebral guy, which you need as a center. But gets after it on the field. And that guy came from, he had no prospects of play, very little prospects of playing college football out of high school. And they kind of snuck him over too. Nobody knew he was even visiting, and then boom, he committed. That was smart because I think a lot of schools have taken one look at him and say, yeah, we'll take you. But impressive so far on the offensive line. Based on intel gathered, I think we talked about Josiah Thompson a little bit yesterday, and that's good. And everybody's going to talk about the other tackle position with Kaysen and Tree maybe battling it out there. But I've been encouraged that some of the feedback is like Boaz Stanley. Trevon Ball, and Beamer mentioned him the other day. Remember, Trevon Ball was an Under Armour All-American. Carolina beat Arkansas, and Sam Pittman on him. Sam Pittman knows what he's looking at. He started as 9 games as a true freshman, played mostly special teams last year behind Torselli Simpkins. But Tro is a 330-pound guy that can move. Was freshman All SEC by some publications, and I think a player that honestly, given what you've heard about his ability to work and reshape and all that and maintain the strength, that could be a big weapon too. I mean, Carolina's going to be pretty large on the inside. We said that, but those two guys, Tree Babalade, I've heard's having a good camp. So that's those are pretty encouraging things to hear from the preseason, from the actual what's been going on over there behind the Rice football building in beautiful practice facilities. Carolina used to not really have great practice facilities. When they're out there on the old proving grounds, practices were open, and we'd sit there, and every night these trucks rumbling by. I don't know how you could concentrate. You had to cross the street, and then every now and then there'd be a Clemson fan or somebody drive by and yell and blow the horn. Hey, go Tigers! It was crazy days, man. Now it's back off the road, kind of behind the buildings, and it's a nice little insulated practice area like most SEC programs have. So hats off to whoever decided. I always thought, mid 2000s when they were talking about building everything, I was like, they need to move that field. And they did, finally. That's thankfully for Gamecock football. But yeah, looking really good. One guy too, I'm excited at the freshman class. I've heard some good things about so far. No idea if he'll be ready to go in the rotation or not, but it's defensive end Anthony Addison out of Sumter. He's a dog, man. He's one of those in-state defensive linemen. And I got to give props to Hill McGranahan of thebigspur.com. He's been all over this guy. He's listed 6'3", 6'4", 230. Probably will need to get bigger, but I think he's one that's going to hit. I think his freshman teammate in the room, Quay Dodd, will hit too. I think Anthony will probably hit sooner. Quay Dodd's kind of a developmental guy who's actually been a little better than people. Because you recruit Quay Dodd because, of his upside. Also, his cousin was an upside guy and they went to Clemson and ended up in the NFL. But he's actually, he's kind of a bigger, longer, 6'5", 6'6", 240 type of guy. So both those guys are from the state, D-line heaven. So keep an eye on those cats moving forward in the edge room. And we'll see kind of what happens with them. But Anthony Addison out of Sumter, that's one to definitely keep an eye on. Hale McGranahan went down to see Caden Ramsey. Speaking of Hale, Cross High School, South Carolina tight end, hybrid tight end target, 6'5", 205. I've heard a lot of great feedback about this guy. I think the main question with him is he a receiver or a tight end? Carolina likes him kind of as a tight end. Gamecocks are looking pretty with him. I know Sean Elliott is really high on his ability. He loves the guy. That's why when, Tilden Riley decided Vanderbilt was his choice, they immediately went to this guy. I don't know if they wouldn't have offered him anyway. I'll let you read Hale's article on thebigspur.com for more details on that. It's a VIP piece, so you can join annually by using the code TheShow50 for half off a membership right now if you head on over to thebigspur.com. But I will say this was the important thing to confirm, because his stat line, because he plays defense too, had 13 interceptions last year for Cross High School. 13. And he's, 6'5". I mean, I'm like, that's crazy ball skill wise. I mean, the chances of 13 interceptions happening in one season for one player. And I've said this before, who's throwing the ball at him? What are the other players doing? What are they doing? I mean, sorry, other coaches in high school. Why are they throwing at this guy? What a 13 interceptions. So it's true. I saw the stat line. I was like, surely that's not right. Surely somebody was three and somebody, no, it's 13 interceptions. So I'm excited about him. Guys like that from the state that, Clemson and Carolina both over the years, more so Carolina recently, but you take a flyer on, they usually work out. Jaquel Holloman from Blackville Hilda in the last class is kind of fits that mold, even though he made it all the way to 4 stars by the end. And I think Tristan Lewis from Greenwood at 6'4", defensive back, high school quarterback, is another player in this 2026 class. So glad Hale went to see Caden Ramsey. He checked out 13 interceptions. My goodness. Potential class of 2026 edition. Amari Thomas is announcing day after tomorrow. Blountstown, Florida, 4-star running back, fast, decommitted from Florida State, right there in Florida State's backyard. We'll see if Carolina gets him, but I think there's confidence there. That'd be another recruiting win in the backyard of a traditional power. And like I said before, he's the type of back I think Marquell Blackwell wanted in this class. They wanted kind of a speedier back. Not that the other guys aren't fast, but there's different types, of backs. There's slashers, there's vision guys, there's rumblers. I don't know. I haven't really clearly defined all of it, but he's the type of back that they would like in this class for sure. And that brings us to our main topic of the day. So, I don't know, Colin, maybe I'm overly optimistic or just refuse to believe that there'll be a negative outcome in this situation. I still think Faison will be cleared. I've always thought that, just based on feedback and then my own analysis of the situation, comparing it to other situations. I don't know what the holdup is, but fundamentally, if they deny him at this point, it's wrong. It's morally wrong because what you basically done is drag it out. And look, not clearing him earlier, like in the spring or the summer, it is. I don't, I'm not gonna bash the NCAA for that. There was a lot going on. But then like once we get down to this point and all the paperwork and stuff is in and they got what they needed from Marshall and they got it weeks ago, there's really nothing more to be done. So I don't know what committee they're waiting on. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's maybe because like Matt Anderson said on the late night Gamecock show, or actually he was on with us on the show last week. It's first come, first serve. It's like I compared it to going to the deli at the grocery store where you have to take the number and wait, and it doesn't matter if the other people in front of you only order sliced lunch meat one at a time. I mean, it's a slow process sometimes. So maybe, or like the DMV. So maybe it's like that, and they're inundated with all these people that really have no business petitioning for another year anyway, and probably getting threatened with lawsuits over the dumbest ones. They did get sued by North Carolina and Duke football players, and luckily a judge was like, "No, this is ridiculous." The literally the petition was, "Some things happened during this year I played in 9 games." Yeah, that's not gonna fly. That's not a hardship. Basically, that one was just, hey, the eligibility calendar's bogus, and you got to have it. You got to have it. You can't have unlimited eligibility. You'll have 30-year-olds playing in college football, and it'll take away opportunity from the younger guys. I mean, it's not. There's nothing against the law there, in my opinion. But we can get that's an all-season topic, diving into that conversation. But maybe they're busy and it's or backed up, and I don't know if like maybe Sewell went to the back of the line. I don't know. I don't know what goes on in Indianapolis. I drive through there sometimes. I never stop. Never been there and gotten out of the car. Been through there, but so we'll see. So I still believe he will be cleared. I mean, I just can't in my mind. There's a lot of things I can see. Well, there's a plausible path for this, though it's very narrow and all that, like outcomes of seasons and stuff. I can't really intellectually justify a path at this point to deny him because the clock's he's been practicing at Carolina. The clock's ticking on getting into an NFL training camp. I mean, you're really just kind of putting the guy in unnecessary limbo one way or the other. So I don't know. I'm assuming he's going to be ready. So this conversation, it needs to happen though, whether or not he's eligible or not, the starter or not. I mean, it's a running back. I mean, last year Carolina was kind of fortunate. Rocket missed one game, or actually missed. You know, he played against Akron, but after the play where he hurt his ankle, he was out, for the rest of that game, and then an off week, and then came back against Ole Miss, was kind of half speed, and then got back. Rocket did a good job staying healthy last year, took some shots. Same with Attaway. The other guys, I think, were kind of in and out. But they, every year around here, there's usually a situation where your running backs that aren't your starters have to play and get carries. And then they rotate on top of that. Last year, Markwell Blackwell did a good job, I thought, because if you got Rocket, ride Rocket, right? Rocket, and then Oscar Attaway came in and spelled him, and they put Juju McDowell in there for certain plays as well. And then Howell got a cup of coffee, and then Fuller played very sparingly. So if that holds serve, there's still going to be a second back rotating in. I kind of feel like based on this year that with Faison, without Faison, they'll probably open it up a little more with the rotation. So it's an important conversation to have. So who is beyond him? I'm not going to say behind, just say beyond, because you don't know who's right behind him. Uh, Shane Beamer's talked a couple of times when he's been asked about it lately. He said, well, we've got other running backs, and I like the room a lot. And, frankly, I do too. He and I are like-minded on it. There are some folks that don't, and that's fine as well. I think that the conversation about Faison is much more about who Faison is and what he can do than what the other guys cannot. And, like I talked about yesterday a couple of times, at some point, that's how it's got to be at this program. It's not that everybody sucks behind the starter. You got to believe in your backups. I mean, the SEC in many ways is a game of attrition. There will be injuries. And so, there's that. And I think sometimes that's just kind of old school mentality. And look, when Marcus Lattimore got hurt in 2011 and there were other backs that nobody saw Brandon Wilds coming in there and having the season he did as a true freshman, did they? No. I didn't know that they should have even taken Brandon Wilds. You know, again, shows how much I know. This episode can be called JC's wrong about a lot of things. That's the game, man. That's the game. But behind him, I like all these guys. I really do. Oscar Attaway, talk about him first. I've said before, good ending to last season. Oscar, I think, probably did not have great blocking at times last year. The Akron game to me, and that's when Oscar started and played. That was one of the most frustrating offensive line games, I guess. I mean, Robbie Ashford ran all over him, but just getting a push and against a team like that, and I was, I mean, it was a 50-7 win, but I was just like, I was a little disgruntled, honestly, by how that went down in that game up front on the offense. I think it was one of their worst games, to be honest. Averaged about 4 yards a carry and had a touchdown. But as the season went on and the line got a little better and he ran fine. I think he's got really good hands out of the backfield. He's an older player and a leader on the team. And when I was in Columbia in June, I was told, don't count him out. There's been different times where there's been really good feedback on him, especially when they signed him out of North Texas. They thought this guy's really good. Um, didn't always work out that way last year, but he did make his share of plays. I think being um, a safety valve type of player for Lenore Sellers in the pass game worked. I mean, he caught 7 passes in the Citrus Bowl. So, Attaway is a player that, it's real easy to kind of get enamored by what Matthew Fuller and Isaiah Augustov and Jordan Howell bring to the table. But I mean, he's a solid back. I mean, I would imagine if there is no justice in the world and Faison's not cleared, that Oscar would be the favorite to start the game against Virginia Tech just because of his experience and last year. Isaiah Augustov was a 4-star recruit out of Florida. He's a Floridian, went to Arkansas, played some as a true freshman, went to Colorado and was their leading rusher last year. Only rushed for about 370 yards because they never ran the ball. But he played a lot, and he's about 6'2", 220, 215. On film, I mean, I'll be honest, the film at Colorado, there were subtle things he did well, but it was hard to kind of get a good sense of it just because their offense at Colorado last year was basically a lot like I don't want to say a Mike Leach offense because it was a pro style system. Pat Shermer, who actually worked with Mike Shula a bunch through the years, was their OC, but it was one where they just kind of ran for respect. I mean, they didn't call many run plays. And so it's hard to see, well, was there a pin and pull? Was the different types of run plays we're accustomed to see how he'd handle it. I do know this. When you watch it, if there's a 3rd and 3 and he has a hole, he's getting the 4 or 5 yards. He's a tough runner after contact. There's a couple of plays where he broke wide open, kind of like Attaway did in the bowl. They had enough speed to get into the end zone. You don't want to get run down. But, just because I wasn't blown away doesn't mean he's not good. And they obviously thought it was a great opportunity to sign him out of the transfer portal. It was interesting. He initially signed with Virginia or wanted to go to Virginia, and then Virginia wouldn't admit him. And so back in the portal, no problem getting into USC. Because Virginia, University of Virginia, obviously is different standards wise, and they think they want to win football games up there. I'm like, okay, if you want to win football games, if a guy is eligible at another school, you probably just need to let him on in. But that is another off-topic, off-season conversation about the way admissions departments sometimes treat athletes, and that's again, folks in Indianapolis say they have one mission, but it's really not, which infuriates me, quite frankly. But so Isaiah is an experienced player, was in the Big 12 last year, played in big games. Uh, good to have him, obviously. And he's got, I think, 2 more years, 2 more, because he did not redshirt at Arkansas. So he's got 3 to play 2 at South Carolina, and was a big time recruit. Jawan Howell, saw a picture of him from practice. He's about 220. Man, again, like all the way down to wearing number 22 reminds me of Derek Watson, who also made some star plays in the South Carolina State uniform after he transferred down there to play for Buddy Pugh during the Holtz era. Some of you may be too young to remember Derek Watson, but it was early Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz's first big recruiting win, because the kid almost went to Tennessee. I think he actually may have committed to Tennessee. Squeaky was his name. Made a lot of big plays for the Gamecocks. But Howell reminds me of that guy a lot, right down to the spin move. I thought when he played pretty well last season. Everybody's going to remember the fumble in the bowl game, but it's not like he fumbled all year, after the pass that he caught. I think he's got a bright future. It may surprise me, because if you go through it and Faison is eligible, you got 3 backs right there I just mentioned. I mean, I'd be surprised if Howell's the 4th, but it may be that he's a year away. but it wouldn't shock me or surprise me at all if he's not, and if he's a big part of the offense this season. Um, Probably be more surprising if he was than wasn't, just to clarify that. I'm not being cryptic on any kind of intel there. I love Matthew Fuller too. I like Matthew Fuller because he falls forward. He's a physical runner, downhill guy, bigger dude. Wouldn't want to tackle him. And I thought he had a really nice spring game and all that. And he got better during the spring from first scrimmage to the end, to the game. A few times he carried the ball against Akron. It was really cool because he fell forward. That again, that was not a good game for the offensive line, regardless of what the stats may say. And so he had some traffic, and he'd go into the pile and fall forward. So South Carolina, you look down the road, and in theory, everybody's back next year except Faison. And you add Amari Thomas to the mix. I mean, that's still a really good running back room for Carolina. And it's been an adventure. I'll be honest, at that position, recruiting from the high school ranks, obviously the former running backs coach just did not do much on the recruiting trail. Got Fuller, and Braswell, who's now at Georgia State, but that was about it. Lost on a lot of players, but Marquell Blackwell, you got the Amari Thomas situation, and then two studs in state for 2027 at Woodruff and Burns that they're working hard. And, so things are kind of looking different from high school recruiting. Now, from the portal, I don't know how you can even argue that portal recruiting at this position hadn't been tip top. I mean, Mario Anderson was a heck of a get, right? They come back and, they got Faison this year. And then in between all that, you add Rocket, Oscar Attaway, and Jawarn Howell from the portal. I mean, maybe you just go portal at running back. I don't know. It kind of depends on how productive everybody is this year, because you knew Rocket was going to be productive. And Mario was a nice surprise, though. Again, behind that line, dude, God, that guy, he should have been starting from the beginning. I often wonder if he couldn't have been a little bit of a counterbalance to all the sacks against North Carolina with his running style if they were aggressively upfield. But I don't want to relive that game. It was so disappointing. Such a fun day, and then a disappointing outcome. So running back, I think beyond Faison or behind him if he comes back, or beyond if even if he does come back, is in a good spot. I think it's certainly a lot better than 2 years ago. And some of these guys too, just like I was talking about, when you look up and down the roster, it's not like they're chopped liver. You look at Howell and Fuller and Isaiah Augustov. I heard Gus Johnson say Augustov, but it is Augustov. And then even Attaway has had his moments, and he's in his second year, and an older guy that's a leader. I mean, shoot, that's in pretty good shape. Pretty good shape heading in. All right, don't forget, JC and Morgan coming up 9:30. Andy Staples from On 3 will be with us. The morning show, Whittle on All Things, the segment, not the column. There is the column on thebigspur.com, Whittle on All Things. The show will follow. It's Wide Open Wednesday, which means you don't have to have a Club Chief membership to jump in. If you'd like to join Club Chief, you can join right here on this Club Chief Sports South Carolina YouTube channel. $4.99 a month, and you can talk with all of us till your heart's content during our live shows. Tailgate Talks has dropped today. Special guest Marcus Lattimore. Sports Talk with Phil Kornblut from 6 to 8 live on the Chief Sports app. And then tonight, the late night Gamecock show with the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones, and the late night Gamecock, Matt Anderson, to kind of give you the latest insights from camp, latest data. I think they were previewing some other opponents this year. Should be a great show. All right, this has been Coffee with JC Shurburtt. I'm out. Holla at you soon.